unless you wanna show up and talk to us.
And I wouldn't do it on the first blush anyway. I haven't seen, does anybody have a draft of it?
Not this one. I got the last one, I don't have this one.
Yeah. Well, we could do next Monday.
That's what I said. I mean, they won't get an after us Friday.
No, not without our review, no.
Unless you want to be there for lunch. Lunch at noon.
Well,
How can it
I
get?
won't be there, I'll get there, but I can tell you it wouldn't be good.
I know. First reading.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're
Go
fine.
to a chamber event.
I'm burnt up.
There you go. What's that called behind
I'm
you?
burnt up.
What's this?
What?
What's that part behind?
Oh, it's a lag.
4 second delay.
4 second lag. Well,
Never know.
okay, that sounds like a plan to me. Make sure I'm all the way up. We're on what?
How are you?
I'm good and tired. How are you?
I am the same.
I was just
Exhausted.
digging in my building that don't have no air in it, and I'm sweating. I'm sticky. It was an unplanned adventure. I don't have to keep you under control.
Hey. Love it.
I'm just kidding.
I love it. That's the ladies.
Much to the chagrin of Tammy, this worked fine. All I did was push on the
My chair's different than everybody's.
Just seems to work for me. I don't know what the problem is.
I love it. Do like this. Watch this. Watch the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Joe, you're cracking me. I didn't even know. I think somebody turned my mic on for me.
Open mic. Oh, an open mic.
It was already on. Oh, but I mean, it was already pushed on.
If I go back, it's not public. That might be a good spot.
Trying to finish reading all of these. I'm trying my best to finish reading all of them. A little bit. Good thing I'm used to reading my brother and my dad's handwriting.
Hey, I've seen, you gotta see some of the stuff. We've got one boy going and, but Trinity.
I didn't hear anything.
You look at that stuff, Rosemary was just as bad. She was left-handed, I know Trinity's left-handed. But it was a hoot. You get that, you turn it sideways and upside down. No, Frank, nobody's touched with it, have they? Let's try Good stuff. All right, so move this up front. Pass it on, pass it down. Everybody can get a little bit. Sweeten everybody up. Huh? I'll bring it all up. Everybody get on the sugar high? Everybody get on the sugar high.
I'm just gonna leave it over in the corner.
This kind of reminds me of revival that I'm not getting, I'm getting.
Lamb needed that the other day.
You're in heaven, aren't you? We got plenty of games tonight.
All right, folks, we're having too much fun. It's 6 o'clock. Let's get serious and get this meeting started. We're having way too much fun here. It's time to get serious about city business. And this is, I'm glad to see everybody here for the special call meeting of the city council's work session for the city of Lula. We got a short agenda tonight, but before we do that, we're going to go through our regular routine. We're going to have a prayer, then we'll have a pledge, then we'll have citizen comments. Dear Lord, thank you for the blessings of this day. Give us strength, courage, and wisdom to make the proper decision for the city of Lula. Amen. All right. It's time for citizen comments. City Council has adopted a policy for citizen comments as follows. In order to provide the citizens of Lula, Georgia, an opportunity to address the council, we set forth the following rules. The time for citizen and public comments will be made available at the beginning and ending of each City of Lula work session and council meeting. Comments can be made by anyone, including business owners whose businesses are located within Lula city limits. Comments will not be limited to any topic. Comments must be directed to the mayor and the council. Language must remain civil, and the speaker should avoid personal contacts on the council or staff. The speaker should state their name and address. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. A timer will be set, and in 3 minutes, the speaker will be asked to bring the comment to close. If there's something else to be said, an opportunity will be available at the next session to offer citizen comments.
I'd like to make a motion that there be no time limit to could I get a second?
Referring to the time limit on item
How about citizen comments? We're on citizen comments now. We're on citizen comments.
I'd like to ask a question. April 22nd of last month, I filed for a special call.
You didn't give your name and address, please, sir.
Excuse me?
Citizen comments require you to name and address. That's what citizen comment rules say.
Robert Grizzle, 6400 Narramore Way, Lula, Georgia, 30554.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I made a request for a special call, a formal request for a called special meeting. I, Robert Grizzle, hereby come now before the city of Lula to request a called special public meeting about the theft of personal property taken by a city official, not known one name, from my residence at 6400 Narramore Way, Lula, on April 19th of 2024. I hand-delivered this to 2 council members, sent it by electronic media to 2 council members and to our city council by email. So, but now what we're hearing here is a public notice. It's got nothing to do with my special call, that I called a meeting that it takes more than 3 minutes. So are we having citizens' comments, or am I being denied my right to the meeting that I requested and was approved by 2 council members? Am I being denied that right?
Citizens are not allowed to call special meetings of city council. That is a job of the mayor and 3 council members. That's not a job of a citizen. Am I wrong?
No.
So I am being denied that.
No, sir. You're not as requested.
So we don't want to talk about the theft of my signs, in other words.
Now, we'll talk about it. If you
All
want,
right.
that's part of your
Let's
comments.
talk about it. You know,
If you don't mind. Sorry, let me get this mic on. It is my understanding and the request of council that we go through sign ordinance review, enforcement actions, and complaints. And I don't necessarily mind if we reverse that and do complaints first and hear the complaints. And if council needs to call upon individuals that may have filed the complaint, that's what I expect to do, Joe.
During
Do you
the
disagree?
meeting, right now, we're doing citizen comments.
Okay, that's fine. We'll cover that.
all right.
As soon as the comments it is.
My comment is I'm looking forward to my time to speak about what was taken from my property.
Anybody else?
First Amendment right.
6759 Belton Bridge Road, Lula, Georgia.
Name?
Felton Wood, Hall County right-of-way. Turn around, the marshal, come out, removing signs. Turn around, show the document. It's not City of Lula right-of-way. And the first document that came all the way up to Mr. Robert Grizzle's that stated that's Hall County Road right-of-way. It's not Lula. Now, there were some signs removed on Belton Bridge Road, but I did come down and talk to Mr. Frank and Doug, and we got that solved, and it got taken care of. It's a road right away up Hall County. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Building up 5600 Hemlock Street, Lula, Georgia. I got the wrong agenda. It says here, special
sorry.
call council meeting. They say nothing about city comments or anything, and then the agenda is at the bottom. And I think we've all got this one.
Yes, sir.
So
That's
You
not-
get to change
That's
the-
not an agenda. That's
you
a
get
pub-
to
that's a
change
pub-
the
That's a public
rules.
notice. That's not an agenda. That's a public notice. Read the top of it. It's not an
the
agenda.
subject, special call city council meeting.
But during every council meeting, we have to have citizen comments. We had to have an invocation. That's our ordinances. We're set up that way. It wasn't written in the agenda, it's oversight.
Okay.
Now, this is not an argument section, it's a citizen comment section. Anybody else? There'll be an opportunity in the meeting to have more citizen comments. Thank you. All right. Tony wants to reverse the order tonight. I got no problem with that. We'll listen to complaints on the agenda first.
Thank you. And did you want to make a motion?
First,
You were attempting to make a motion earlier. Do you want to make that motion now?
I want to make a motion, there'll be no time limit on anybody tonight.
All right, I'll second that motion for no time limit on the special called city council meeting for tonight.
how about councilman comments or mayor comments? Are we limiting those or just?
Anybody.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure it's clear what we're doing. First of all,
Well, wait a minute.
first thing I want to clarify, to have a special call meeting of the city council, it has to be called by the mayor or 3 council members. That's what our charter says. Now, only person I know that called to me was Tony. Is anybody else called this meeting?
Excuse me, are you saying the cause of this? Before you
No,
go any further,
I want
to
to clarify the special call meeting.
Say what you said again.
Our charter says the mayor can call it or 3 council members can call it.
Yes.
Now, the only thing I heard was that Tony called it. I didn't hear anybody else say they want to call
I'm
it.
sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying because I couldn't understand your
Okay.
language.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
I had sent out an email asking if there was an interest and we,
I,
had an interest by
I had no response.
Mr. Smith.
I had no indication of all that. I don't know where it was Tony. That's the one I was informed of. That's all I need to know. Is clarify which council members called for it. That's all I wanted to know. Okay. All right, now.
We speak with each other
I know.
as council,
I know.
Joe, and you're not included in all of those conversations because we certainly wouldn't want to introduce a conflict of interest for meeting quorum and having open meetings records, on these, conversations that are one-on-one. That's how we do business, Joe.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know, I'm pretty sure, I think you know, but.
The mayor is not part of the quorum. It takes 3 council members.
Yeah,
to quorum.
this
The
is,
mayor's not a
but you,
quorum.
I want you to be very clear when you're sitting here talking to all of our citizens here, that it makes it sound like you're assigning all of this meeting on one individual, and that would be me.
No, I'm just clarifying what I was saying, stating what the rules are,
Okay,
and clarify. That's all I'm doing.
Well, thank you, sir.
I'm not blaming you like anything.
appreciate you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Complaints.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm not necessarily in agreement with a no limit. I'm okay with upping the speaking limit, but if we put no limit on it, there's no telling how long this meeting will go. And I feel like there needs to be some sort of time limit, whether it be 10 minutes, but I feel like unlimited, it can cause the meeting to get out of control, and I don't want us to get into a heated argument where it just goes back and forth and there's no way to stop it. There needs to be some sort of order, and I feel like leaving a time limit off causes conflict with keeping order. I'm fine with upping the time limit, but I feel like we need some sort of limit. That way.
How about
So-
8 minutes?
The topics, I'm just going to
And I'm
interject
okay
here.
with 10.
Well,
I'm
first of
just
all,
saying-
we got a motion on the table. We have a motion on the floor to eliminate total time limits during this, for anybody's comments during this meeting.
You mind if I
have
revise
a
that
second.
motion?
I have a second for that. Did I not get a second?
Well, I thought we could,
No, we got to vote.
communicate
We got to vote on
the
that motion.
Can we not communicate on the motion?
Tony seconded.
I did second the motion, yes.
Right. and
Well, that's what I,
That's right.
okay, I didn't think I was out of
You're absolutely
order.
correct, Denise.
Okay, okay. I was-
So to continue that open for discussion, I would say this, we may revise the motion to say that we want for items number 1, 2, and 3, which is signed ordinance review, enforcement actions, and complaints, that we are not, as council, limiting what we are doing, because we can request to hear as we need to. I don't think that we, if we want to continue to hear more, if you want to set a 10-minute limit, I'm okay with that. And if we decide that we need to hear more and get more information, then we can request that.
I'll go along with that.
No.
We have a motion on the table, on the floor, to eliminate time limits for all comments tonight. And it's second by Tony Cornett. All in favor of that motion?
That is not what the motion
That's-
was,
that-
sir. This was the discussion.
that's proposed to be amended with a time limit of 10 minutes.
But we have, okay. Are you amending your motion?
First, or agree to that, then you would move forward.
Okay.
Otherwise, you would hear the motion that was stated at the beginning.
Are you, I mean, all right. We have a motion on the floor to limit comments per topic to 10 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Per topic, hold it, the language that you put in there, per topic of 10 minutes, no. That would equal 10 minutes on sign ordinance, enforcement action, 10 minutes, and 10 minutes on
I
complaints.
misunderstood. I thought that's what you want. You want 10
No,
minutes total.
if we're going to request comments from an individual, I think that's what we're after.
I don't know.
Okay, so, we're not limiting our discussion here on per topic, but if we're calling upon someone else to provide any additional information from those in attendance, I think we can be fair to say that we would limit that to 10 minutes, and then we can extend that at will as needed.
Okay, let's see if we can get this thing
Okay.
straight. All right, the motion on the floor is to limit citizen comments to 10 minutes on a topic, unless requested for more information.
I like that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Okay.
Okay. All right, you still want to reverse order. You still want to do complaints first, is that correct?
Yes, if we can go ahead and move complaints to be covered first, and that way we'll have a good idea of give everyone an opportunity to hear what has possibly led up to this.
I'm open.
All right. So we making a motion? I'll make a motion that we move complaints to become topic number 1 tonight. Do I have a second? Go ahead, Joe.
Got a motion by Tony, second by Garnet and Denise, to move topic, complaints to number 1 topic. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed say no. All right, complaints is the number 1 topic tonight. Now then, let's start with the complaint part of our agenda.
All right.
Who has the complaint file?
So we received multiple complaints, did we not?
Did you want to hear from the public? Right, we did.
I just want to know if we did receive more than one complaint. We had, I don't necessarily need to name the names, but if there are those in attendance that did file a complaint, I would certainly love the opportunity. If you filed a complaint and you want to raise your hand, I could certainly recognize that. So we see in the audience tonight, Robert Grizzle, it looks like, has filed an official complaint. Would anyone like to hear more in his own words about what that complaint was? Because I know that we did receive it and we did see it in email.
Yes.
Okay. Robert, would you mind coming up and expanding on your complaint?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Grizzle, 6400 Narramore Way, Lula, Georgia. At risk of losing probably 45 of my seconds here, I would like to say in those readings of citizens' comments, if the mayor is asking the citizens to be civil, I think he needs to do the same. Practice what you preach. I mean, it wasn't to me, but the other people up here, I mean, that was some pretty rude language that was being used, and there's no sense in that. If we're not expected to do that, I think from our elected officials, we shouldn't have to be treated that way. Now, I'd like to go back to, as I did, request a formal meeting, special meeting. As I did, I called in to the city of Lula on one Thursday morning. I made 2 phone calls. I called in to the city of Lula, and I did ask why certain candidate signs were being allowed on not city right-of-way, but on city property owned by the city, and also school property, which everyone knows that's a big no-no. That's government property, it's school property, and it's not supposed to happen. Well, I also called down to the Hall County Elections Committee, and we got some surprising information there. Now, 2 things happened after that. I came home that Thursday evening, had to rush, get in the car with Miss Grizzle here, and we went to see a play up here at the school. I came back out to feed my animals, and my dog was missing. I'm like, where in the world is my dog? I finally found my dog. Now, my dog is no magician. She's a 1-year-old husky puppy, very rambunctious, but she's going to have opposable thumbs, and I've never seen her walk on her hind legs yet. But that dog was in my chicken pen. She's an extremely friendly dog. She's not going to hurt you, but she might lick you to death. There's no way that dog got in that chicken pen by itself. Loretta came out and witnessed there was no holes dug under it. It's got a roof over it. Where it's open roof, it's got wire over it. No way for that dog to get in there on her own. Matter of fact, she was wanting out because, of course, she killed all the chickens. But the turkey is bigger than her. So the turkey was wearing her out, and she wanted out of there. Come home Friday evening, all my signs are gone. Every one of them. Gone. I made some phone calls, found out what's going on. I also called one of my friends that is law enforcement. He told me, instructed me what to do, and I did that. I have made an official Hall County report on the theft of my signs, and that's what it is. I've learned a lot about right-of-way here in the last week. We own that property. We do. You own your right-of-way. Each of y'all own your right-of-way. The right-of-way is giving the city right-of-way for utilities. Underground utilities, overhead utilities, maybe sidewalks. Get a grant for sidewalks, put sidewalks in. That's what that is for. In taking my signs, that completely took away and disenfranchised me of my First Amendment rights and my Fourth Amendment right. The Fourth Amendment was put in our Constitution because of King Arthur. Going in people's homes, you might have something your child made, and he said, oh, I like that, I'm taking it. Well, they had no right to take it. I thought at one point maybe I should have got a phone call at least. Hey, Robert, would you remove them? Then we could have discussed it. You know, I thought maybe that y'all had the right to pull them up and lay them against the fence. Y'all didn't have that right. That was an absolute no. You did not have the right for anybody. That's illegal search and seizure of my property. That is taking away my Fourth Amendment and my First Amendment right, and that is nothing to be scoffed at. Now, another thing I'd like to get cleared up here tonight, because I know there's a council member who was concerned with this, and I know there's others might be concerned with it. It's called Hall County GIS mapping system. My fence is not on city property. My fence is on the property line of the right-of-way of my property. That's where my fence is at. Now, what is on my property, more than 6 feet, if you look at the Hall, they got a neat little tool that you can measure stuff with, is the city water line. Now, I didn't go out there and take y'all's water line because it was on my property. That's on my property. My fence is not on right-of-way. Taking away a person's First Amendment, Fourth Amendment right should shock every single person in this room, whether they believe in what I'm saying or whether they don't. Because my signs were taken that day. And then I guess the next day, quite a few more signs were taken. But it was clear to see it was bias. It was very biased on the signs that were missing. And another thing I requested, I want to clear there on, I requested a meeting, not a hearing. I requested a meeting because I want to prevent a hearing. A hearing will be in front of a judge about my disenfranchisement of my First Amendment right, my Fourth Amendment right, and my property stolen. City personnel does not have the right to enter people's property without being invited on. Meter readers, now Georgia Power likes to read them by satellite, they have a right to enter your property to read a meter. City workers here in Lula have a right to come up there and read the water meters, if they still do it that way. I think some of that's still done by that way, or just have to drive by it. Gas companies have the right to enter the property for the purpose of meter reading. Heck, I pulled in my place in Commerce this morning, couldn't get to my parking spot because there's a City of Commerce truck parking there in 15 minutes reading all the power meters ahead. They have the right to do it. You know, we've seen a truck parked down in the middle of the city, double parked there for a while, abandoned since Sunday night of last week, removed last night. Did it have insurance on it? Who knows? I know there was a car pulled over by the flock system up in Cornelia that didn't have insurance on it, owned by the same fella, on Friday evening. Interesting. Since March of 1997, Lula has been a very peaceful place to live until the current administration has taken office. Some of that's changed now, and I'm seeing it's for the better. You know, I remember Obama promising change too. Look at our country right now. Look at our country, and look what that's brought us, and look what's happened to it. You know, there's a bad, and I know code enforcement didn't enter my property. I know it wasn't him. I never said it was. I said a city, as I put here, city official, being anybody that's employed by the city. And that is wrong. But they were sent there and had to do their job. I get that. But I think it needs to be taken note that this is a very serious thing. It needs to be taken serious by the city. I'm not one to want to bring a lawsuit against the city of Lula. I love this place. I loved it how it was. I loved it when it was that peaceful place I moved to. I enjoy my neighbors. I enjoyed my chickens till they were all killed when somebody put my dog in the pen with them. But it's been biased here lately. I think most of us know that. I think the majority of us know that. And I'm looking at the percentage of votes that came in for 2 certain council people. It looks like the majority of citizens of Lula don't like how things are being ran. And it needs to change. But more so, the citizens of Lula deserve to enjoy our constitutional rights, being the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment. If we don't have the same agreements as some certain city officials, well, then that's too bad. They need to get out there and campaign for their candidates more or something. But we have a right to voice our opinion, and we have a right to our property being private property and being treated with the respect that it deserves. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to hear me out, and I look forward to further discussion on it of how the city and our council people, now keep in mind, y'all work for us. You 4 up there don't work for Joe, you don't work for Dennis, or I'm sorry, I ain't supposed to call names. Don't work for a city manager, you don't work for a mayor. You work for the citizens of Lula. And this is what we want. We want our rights back. We want our peaceful way of life back here in this city. This has gone on long enough. It's just ridiculous. When you can pull down and see, like, wait a minute, everybody's signs are gone, but you got a big truck parked in the middle of the city with a sign on it. On city property. Abandoned on city property. Left overnight. Now, I know there was an argument about overnight parking, this and that. Anybody that owns a shop down in the city of Lula, if they've paid the money for that property, they have a right to park there overnight. They've invested in this city by buying property downtown, and they should have a right to a parking spot. But nobody should be allowed to abandon a vehicle there for over a week. It was moved last night. Sunday night to Sunday night, that was there. Double parked for most of that time. Nobody done nothing. Said couldn't do nothing about that. Don't have nothing against it. Well, there's a law against Georgia. You know, in Georgia about double parking, there's a law against abandoning a vehicle. Again, I appreciate your time, and I hope you take it seriously so we can have a better outcome than having more meetings like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Is there anyone else that has filed an official complaint with the city of Lula that would like to speak on their complaint?
Can I address the,
Oh, I just wanted to ask Joe if you would like to ask that question, or I can ask that question. Do you want to ask that question?
He's standing right there.
That's the official complaint. Let's hear it.
okay,
I know there's others in the room, so I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity.
Felton Wood, Belton Bridge Road, 6759 Belton Bridge Road. Now, y'all said certain people has made a complaint that my truck was banded. It wasn't banded. I got just as much right to park downtown as the other citizens. And to go on the sign ordinance, it started Thursday, a week ago, with Frank Norton's buddy called me up and said our clients at the end of Athens Street I need to move my signs CBD property. It wasn't on CBD's property. It was on the road right away down through Athens Street. I got just as much as a candidate to advertise to put my signs just like y'all did. in your last election. Now, this private property thing, let me tell you, I was harassed about, I had a call from your code enforcement on my camper. And that camper is tagged. I use it for personal and business. When I go out of town, I use it. Now, what's wrong with it in my front yard? I got a call with the code enforcement in my yard looking at my stuff and told me I had to move my camper. Now, come on. You know, we out working. All we got to do is worry about y'all's rules and regulations against the people. You know, them rules and regulations, like I stand for, reply on y'all too. Now, come on, knock them chips off y'all's shoulders. Y'all got downtown development. You got CBD breathing down your throat, wanting everything up here. You got Frank Norton wanting to turn around and build this city. Now, come on, we all put our heads together, citizens and council, get them chips off your shoulder, get along, and let's work together. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else got a complaint they want to register?
I was wanting to hear those that we had received official email on, those complaints. That's what we were calling for. Is there anyone else that in the room today that filed an official complaint with the city of Lula that would like to speak to it? I'm hearing none. Joe, you want to go ahead?
I'm not sure what our outcome's going to be on this.
Sure. I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm not sure what our outcome's going to be, but if we got no more complaints, I guess we go to the next item on the agenda,
All right.
which is the sign orders, reviewing the sign ordinance.
Excellent.
Mr.
So,
Mayor, could I just offer some clarity?
Sure.
One, I know we've heard a number of complaints over the last 2 weeks. And I think y'all are familiar with the process, and so I won't speak to names tonight, because you don't have to give a name, call with a concern or a complaint. Each one of those is then followed up on, so we had probably at least 6 others. Some were actually in emails, won't call names, apparently those persons don't want to be mentioned, but the way that works, and y'all are familiar with this, code enforcement, if we get a complaint, then we take that information and we follow up to see if there's any justification, and that's what transpired. I don't want anybody to think that those were the only 2 that we received tonight. Y'all are familiar with that, because I believe some of them I forwarded on to you as well, but some of them were kind of just walk into City Hall, Tangi, you could attest to that, and raise their concerns. That was that. We didn't get name, rank, telephone number, nor do you want us to, I know that, but I just don't want everybody to think that those were the only complaints we got.
thank you for that clarification.
And for the note, all complaints were handled in a prescribed manner according to our code enforcement ordinances and dealt with accordingly. Am I right?
That's our town, yes.
All right. The sign ordinance review. I'm not sure where we want to go with this sign ordinance review. I've reviewed it. I'm sure all of y'all reviewed it. Now, is there something we want to change, or just want to look at it again, or what we want to do with it?
Well, I want to make sure that, you know, when we are enforcing it, that we have clarity as set forth in the ordinance so that we know how to enforce it. And, you know, I want to make sure that we all understand how our sign ordinance is, you know, created. I have documents as old as August 15th, 2005 in front of me. That's one sign ordinance. Then it looks like another ordinance, which is ordinance 031714 well, no, that's on parking, so that's a different one. We also have ordinance number 101915-D, amendment to the sign ordinance. So with that, it looks like there were 3 sections, if I'm not mistaken, that were revised. It looks like section 2 is definitions, Additionally, Section 6B on an appeal process. Section 3, that's also subset of Section 6B, it looks like. And then also Section 7 on permit expiration. And also Section 9 prohibited signs. So I want to, make sure, I think there's another one, Section 17 on exemptions. Yeah, this is ordinance 1019-15-D. So that would have been October 19th, 2015. Do we, Joe, is it your belief that is the last ordinance that should be followed? So any of the items that came from, because it doesn't reference, well, it does. The signed ordinance of August 15th, 2005 is hereby amended by repealing.
Right.
Okay. And
If repeal certain section of that ordinance.
right.
Otherwise, that ordinance still stands,
Mhm.
except repealed by this ordinance.
Right. So I think, it might be worthwhile.
Don't read it out loud?
Well, I mean, we don't have to read it out loud. We can. What might be worthwhile is to understand how we enforced this that may have caused some of the complaints. Because, it just has items set forth here, and I'm not so sure that we executed properly. Because I do know, if you notice Section 9 on prohibited signs, it does say signs on public rights of way other than official signs. Is that an area where we may have some, clarity issues as to what is a public right of way and what is a private right of way?
Well, that's defined by ordinance. Georgia Code defines right of way.
Mhm.
Am I right?
All I know is that when you buy a piece of property, you've got meets and bounds in your legal description. I know that those pins or whatever's been used in your legal description is your property.
Right.
And the only right of way that someone has, there are utility easements, which are common rights of way. But the individual, in my opinion and my experience, is that you own that property. And if you're ever, disallowed to use a piece of that property or a portion thereof, then you would be compensated either through, eminent domain where they purchase it from you completely, or I think there's another remedy. I'm not an attorney, but we do have one here. But it is my experience that when you own a piece of property, you have full right to use that property, such as if for some reason we said right of way, which I want to get into how you measure the right of way, where does it start and where does it end. But a right of way, you would have the right to do anything you need in that right of way as it is your property, unless you have a building of some sort, which I think we've already covered that in our setback requirements for buildings. But if you were to construct something even of a temporary nature and it interfered with the ability for a utility company, which that would be us also maintaining water lines, if we needed access to that property, perhaps maybe to repair a water leak, we might either request they move it if it's something that's not of a dire nature. But if we have a water leak and we needed to get a backhoe in there, we certainly could move things that were in the right-of-way that were preventing us from maintaining our own utility easement. But to just go into a right-of-way and remove people's property, I find that as a violation, and I think that's very serious. And if we don't have it enumerated in our ordinance, I think we should look at revising it. It's not something that we could craft tonight, but it's certainly something that we can document as marching orders to move forward and getting clarity on what is a right-of-way and what property can or cannot be removed and under what conditions. Signs just being one of them. My experience is, I've had situations where people have flower beds, or my personal experience is I had a rock garden in a property, not in the city of Lula, but they were putting in a natural gas line. And, everyone in this neighborhood that I was in had nice flower beds all the way up to the sidewalk and the street. And when they came in to put in a natural gas line, they came around to every door, knocked on the door, and if no one was there, they put a sign on it, said, we're going to be here on this day, and we're going to be digging and trenching to put in natural gas lines. And the expectation was, they would put in their comments, you have a rock garden. If you do not move this, we may have to move it for you. And I did so. I moved it. There were some individuals in that, experience that I had that after the trenching was done, they left piles of red clay in the property, and of course, they had to call the utility company, who then came out and said, oh, yeah, we apologize, our third-party contractor shouldn't have left it there. It has to be put back the way that it was if you're going to disturb the earth just for that purpose of the utility easement. So it's not something that you take lightly and just do anything you want with it. It's not the city's property. The city has the right to access it, if need be, for specific reasons, very specific reasons. And it looks like the ordinance that we have here, where it does say prohibited signs on public rights-of-way other than official signs. I don't see anything where, in here, where it talks about rights-of-way. Do we have any documentation regarding rights-of-way? Because I didn't get that in an email.
It was an attachment in an email.
So when was that sent?
Joey, Georgia code,
I think it
does that
was
define public right-of-way versus private right-of-way? Is there a difference?
Yes.
And our ordinance clearly says public right-of-way, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
As opposed to private right-of-way.
Yes, sir.
So there's a difference between public right-of-way and private right-of-way.
Yes, sir. This ordinance is not intended, or that language would not have any impact on a private right-of-way.
So now,
It's only a public right-of-way purposefully, and that's, we're gonna get into a lot of stuff if we wanna start defining roads in Georgia. And if you want a, legal memorandum and opinion about regulation of roads in Georgia, I'll be happy to provide it. But the city is required to follow DOT rules and regulations and statutes, the principal one of which is in 32-6-51 that says it shall be unlawful for any person to erect, place, or maintain within the dedicated right-of-way of any public road any sign, signal, or other device except as authorized by the Georgia Code. So that may just seem like words, but you want to keep getting your LBIG money, you want to keep getting money from the state for your city roads, then the next section says municipalities, you will adopt ordinances that enforce the DOT regs. So there's a number of rules and regulations as it relates to public road right-of-way. You've also heard the mention of easements, which is an entirely different matter from a right-of-way for a road, and those can come back either by an express easement, or as Mr. Grizzle mentioned, sometimes, and this is not the only place where it's happened, where there's a public utility that is located in a certain location and there's not been an express easement granted. You can have an implied easement where the public entity said, we want to put this public utility there, and the owner of the property said that's okay, or whatever they said, but they didn't object to it, and therefore the public entity acquired an implied easement. Or there's probably a lot of roads in our area, and certainly would be the same with our utility lines, could be a prescriptive easement. If it's been there and you're aware of it and we've used it for 7 years or more, and for a public utility and a public road, sometimes that can even be less if it would create a public safety issue if that's removed. And as to an easement, then just what Tony described, that's usually the way an easement works. You have rights to the underlying property. You're called the servient owner, and the owner of the easement over which it runs, in the case we're describing being the government, is called the dominant owner, and the servient owner cannot interfere with the dominant owner's use of that easement. So just what Tony described, if it was, then as a courtesy, usually the servient easement owner will notify and say, hey, will you remove that? But you're not required. You can just file a restraining order and go straight to court, and the court will order you to remove it if you have easement rights. So we're mixing a number of legal principles, but as to a public right-of-way, we have very limited discretion at the city except to enforce what the state DOT tells us to enforce, as long as we want to get state funds for our roads.
So there's one particular document that I see that Denise has And I'm looking at my email, and I do not have the same document. And that document, what is the title of that one? Denise, do you mind?
I can't remember what email I printed it from. I was trying to figure it out, but so I don't think I have that one.
It's a document regarding rights of way, or right of way. We'll have it here in just a minute. Dennis, do you know if we'd received a ordinance for right of way? It looks like it's ordinance 072808A, right of way, performance and privilege use of.
I believe Frank's.
Sure.
Right, sent that.
It was emailed out on May 2nd,
May
9:14, and you were one of the addressees.
9/4, let's see, on May 2nd,
Yes, sir.
9/14. I'm looking here. I don't see an attachment. Let's see. Here it is. Looks like this one. Is it the one that says attachment is a series of emails commencing April 18th? I don't think that's it.
No, this was May 2nd.
Yeah, that also came on May 2nd. I've only received.
Additional ordinance for Monday's meeting.
Okay.
So
Where's that email?
right here. Additional ordinance. I think it might have been an email that you sent, and then it was replied back to.
Well, that's sign ordinance. Frank, since you got the time on it, do you show the title of the attachment?
Additional ordinance for Monday's meeting.
Additional ordinance.
Okay. I'm looking at it. This is the one. Okay. And that says the rest of that is let's see. The title. Let's see here. There is an attachment here. Ordinance right of way. I do see it. So you replied again with a separate attachment. That's a different. It's in the same email string with the additional string of emails that came with it from the one date to the next. But I do see it now, right of way, performance and privilege use thereof. So I think that it's critical for us to understand right of way and how it's measured. Because if we have property, as Joey stated, with the various easements, we have dominant owner and servient owner, it would be good to know where we determine how far is right of way. Because if we send any staff out of any capacity to go execute or enforce, we need to know for sure if we are doing what we're supposed to be doing rather than violating someone's property rights. So if we were to look at the right-of-way performance and privilege use thereof, I know, has everyone had an opportunity to read it? I know I have not.
I've not.
Okay, so you haven't, I haven't.
I read it.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Denise.
Can anyone, and I know Frank, since you sent it, maybe Dennis or Frank want to tell us a little bit about how right-of-way is measured, and if they foresee any issues with being able to have definitive answers as to where the right-of-way actually lies.
So I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, thank you.
So, let me turn my microphone on, I'll be sure it's not clear. So, a couple of things happened, again, not to confuse things, but Mr. Holman's, pointed out, so we have right-of-way, public right-of-way, we have potential for easements, and, we're aware of those. Generally, we find out about specifics on easements when we're doing some utility work on that, so everything's a little bit more defined. That being said, public right-of-way, and I'm afraid to pull it up here, but I actually could, in Hall County GIS mapping, it actually defines, and I may give it a stab because I think even if we lose the internet connection, it's worthwhile for y'all to see. So right-of-way through the city can be as small as 30 feet across, can be as wide as on Athens Street. We've got a section that has 80-foot right-of-way. There was over the course of time, many, many moons ago, so nobody in this room can be held responsible for it. The right-of-way often was initially started ditch to ditch and then expanded through the years. But that varies from street to street. If I took you in the old Belton section of the city up there, the right-of-way up there, like I said, can narrow as low as 30 feet. And then if you went into old Lula, old downtown section of Lula, you'll find similar down there, the right-of-ways have been very narrow. What the rationale wasn't, I wouldn't speak to, we weren't here. But as the city developed through the course of years, you would find the right-of-ways being broadened to 40, 50, or 60 feet. But a lot of times there wasn't any rhyme or reason. If I took you on Athens Street, actually Belton Bridge is very similar to that too. The right-of-way widens and then it narrows again, and I couldn't tell you how that decided. But I can tell you that Hall County GIS has really, through technology, been able to use, and most of y'all are familiar with this, they use satellites now. So it used to be that everything was measured within about a 3-foot, give or take, what showed inaccuracy. Now, they can almost put it down to the pin on the property. When we talk about public right-of-way here, that is as general as the mapping. Let's take a shot about pulling up Hall County GIS. Because I think y'all will see the challenge we face. So, Tony, back to where we don't generally try to stay away from meets and bounds, as Joey described it. We have utility requirements that come from the state of Georgia through their adoption, as well as DOT requirements. So we have to keep that right-of-way available for utilities and the right-of-way available for the streets. But we're going to see if we can't pull up Hall County GIS up here and show you all the screen.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask a question. Will we also get a chance to comment on each of these three on the sign ordinance as we go through it? Can we comment on that also?
Raise your hand, be recognized, we call on you when.
Yeah, we can recognize that. I would,
I'll leave you with that. This is great, and, y'all think I'm doing a 180 on this, but I'm not. I agree with the sign ordinance. I hate for people come put a yard sale sign in my, Robert Grizzle, 640 Narrow Way, Lula, Georgia. I hate when people come put a yard sale sign in my yard, but they never come back and get it. So now I just deliver it right back to them as soon as they put it out. And because it's their property and I don't want it, they gave it to me, but because it becomes my property, but I don't want it, so I give it, and I'm nice enough to give it right back to them. But a sign ordinance reads as a permanent signage. This was an excellent day for this. As I was taking Jordan to school this morning, I noticed a guy down here at the pharmacy taking a temporary sign out and sitting on the side of the road that he was open because, he probably can't, that's railroad property. He can't get a sign put over there. I don't, the church is a sign over there right on the road.
Been there for years.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is about removal of signs. But I think it's all, signed ordinance should be there, and it pertains to permanent signage. It's political season. I think there should even be some constraints on that. Do we need 100 signs in one yard? No, we don't need that. I happen to have a corner property. I put about the same amount of signs or less on each side. I was sitting there, enjoyed the privilege of having signs in my yard also. They wasn't removed, and I don't think he'd have liked it if they'd have been removed. But political signs during political season, as long as they're picked up literally the day after the election, they should be removed. Just like the real estate signs, and they're bad about the real estate signs there. They've learned to put them across the street from my house now. But, they'll put them there and leave them. They're allowed to put real estate signs. I'm not talking about, the permanent ones they put up when they're selling property, but open house signs, things like that. They can put them up on Friday evening, but they'll be removed by Sunday evening. Now, access to right-of-way, things like that. Dennis can tell you, we work very well together on that water line. The gate that is right there on the port, yeah, the gate that is, there's a big gate there, bigger than I needed to drive a lawnmower through, but the gate is there in case they need to come on the property to access that water line. And I didn't ask them to buy a gate, I didn't ask them to do anything. I went and built the gate to work with the city. But that's a little bit about that. Thank you. But I think there should be something, maybe for political season, there should be some guidelines. But it should be discussed with the public in the proper manner. Thank you.
Like this meeting here.
So back to your question about how we take a look at the right of way.
Yep.
Because I don't want to pick on any one individual, I'll show you an example of what we run into a lot of time. What you're looking at, if you can see it, is, gosh, where's my wonderful pointer?
Zoom in.
That is Carter Allen. And if you'll notice, the property lines, which is the individual parcels, is all blocked off. So you can see that's what we described. The outside of those parcel lines and everything on the interior is what we consider right-of-way, public right-of-way. All right, now I want you to look. If you can see where
The parcel lines, you're referring to like Carter Alley right there. Just for clarity, to make sure that I fully understand what you're saying, is, I see the one property there on the corner, looks like the north, looks like directly across from Veterans Park.
Yes.
You see that one? So, I see the line in the middle of the street, right? So I see that line, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you.
And I see how it's,
you won't like.
it does not align with any of the meets and bounds as described there as well. So it's kind of off, agreed,
Oh.
right? Very off.
A lot of them.
Mhm. And so that is very difficult to identify.
So let me give it a little bit more clarity where there's none.
Mhm.
All right, so, where you see the light shade that's somewhat in the middle of the street, boy, do I need a pointer right now.
Use your mouse. Use the mouse.
Well, it won't do the same thing.
I know
Anyway,
where you can
so
put
this
it.
light shade right there, that's supposed to be the pavement. So GIS mapping has went out there and they've actually, with satellites, identified where the pavement's supposed to be. So if you look, this particular piece, this particular parcel right here, and that's the pavement. This little line right in the middle that goes here is supposed to be what Hall County identifies as center line. Totally inaccurate, all right? But I want you to see how all this narrows. And you might notice, see that little building right there? That little building right there probably is in right of way and has been probably since the beginning of time. When we're not about to move that building or ask them to move it. But I want you to notice how that narrows. And you go up down through here and you'll see where it went for much wider width. Somebody mentioned earlier that, I think it must have been Mr. Grizzle, pointed out we have a measuring tool that we can use there. And we do, but you can see how that narrows. That, I was gonna say that's more common than not. What is common is that the right-of-ways from one street to another vary. The center line, this is what happens for John Q. Public when they come in. They wanna know, well, can I measure from, if it's a 40-foot right-of-way, can I measure from the center of the pavement? And the answer clearly becomes, as the example I gave you, no. But most people don't know where their parcel begins and ends. As a matter of fact, most people don't know, Tony, you described
Meets and bounds.
as a good example. And in some areas, very few in the city, the meets and bounds actually extend to the pavement. I'll pick on a council member that will go unnamed, and in their particular case out there, I can only assume that the right-of-way was determined by ditch to ditch, and that's the way it was done for years. But going back to the average citizen doesn't know where it all begins and where, and we often send them to Hall County GIS mapping. It's a pretty friendly tool that you can use. So in our case, it becomes a real challenge for us because I've given you one example here, but that's very common in the city. What's common is the pavement is never centered. It's just a rarity. I can pull up Belton Bridge and show you how that varies. But so what we have done through the years is maintaining the enforcement is one, we would rather err on the side of caution. If somebody goes up and they want to put, we have any number of church signs, somebody pointed that out earlier, that have been there through the beginning of time. And if you really want to make this room full, go take down a church sign that's been there since the beginning of time on right of way. Doesn't make it right. It's just, that's not something we're trying to do. You know, we're trying to serve the community interest. This has been tough on us. And the complaints we've gotten recently, and I say recently, in this particular election cycle, is different from what we've heard. Now, I've heard it through the years a little bit differently, but when we had some correspondence between Joey and Frank and myself, because we've gotten these complaints, and we thought, you know, again, our responsibility is compliance. And so, you know, the decision amongst all of us was, hey, we'll go out and we'll do the best we can. We'll err on the side of caution, not putting words in y'all's mouth. That's about what we said. And we'll remove the signs. And if we have the opportunity, we will address, knock on the door, or when the opportunity presents itself. The next thing you know, I'll give you an example of one of the complaints that was anonymous. Somebody called in about, I think it was on, I'm not going to be able to remember the exact street, but they called in complaining about a particular sign. Oh, it was on Main Street. And it was more than one sign, and they were sure it was on public right-of-way. And then an hour and a half later, they called back and wanted to know why we hadn't removed that sign. Well, they don't know where our priorities might be that day. It was addressed a little bit later, interestingly enough. That particular complaint, from what I can recall, and was told actually wasn't on public right-of-way. But my point being with y'all is this is one of those, unless we're out there and we're doing a survey, and somebody in the room has been there. We've been down that road, haven't we? What we think the survey says and what it actually ends up being are two different things. And we would have to survey every piece of property. General rule of thumb that I've thrown out, and I'm the guy you blame some of this stuff on. So if you see Georgia Power or Bell South, now AT&T, telephone poles, and you're, as a rule of thumb, not so true anymore, especially with underground utilities, and you can see that telephone pole, the right-of-way is going to be just to the right of that. It's going to be on the interior. And that doesn't mean it's absolute, but like I said, the average person, even probably in this room, doesn't know where their right-of-way is, or where their property line ends, unless they have a survey done and the pins are in the ground. Other than that, so we have erred on the side of caution. At least that's what we try to do. Doesn't mean that we haven't made mistakes along the way. I'll be the first to admit that. But unless we're going out and we're surveying every piece of property, then we're not going to know the exact right of way. And so back to the experience part of it. The political climate often gets emotional.
No.
And we understand that, so we're even that more sympathetic to it. So at the same time, you know, I had a gentleman call me up Friday night 2 weeks ago at 6:30, and this is not one of those complaints. It was actually, he was teasing with me about his sign was removed, and he just wanted me to know that it wasn't intentional that he put it on the right of way. There's a property down here on Main Street that has, I gave this as an example the other night to a couple of council members, that those three signs are still there. And the reason they're still there is because unless we did go out and have a survey done, I couldn't tell you, it's pretty close, so I'd rather err on the side of caution than take, those particular signs. So I can tell you this, is that intentional on our part, we favor one council, or one person running for office versus another person? I'm gonna tell you, that is not our intentions, and I'd be very upset if we were being partial to that. I know it's easy to say, but it's not what we're trying to do out there, day in and day out. I know, the concern about, Mr. Grizzle pointed out that he was aware of who took the signs down on his property. I'd like to actually talk about that a little bit more, because I think, I wasn't out there, but I think we tried to err on the side of caution there as well, but it was clearly right of way. That particular property, that particular lot doesn't go all the way out to the curb and gutter on that street. There is right of way there, and I don't think that's what Mr. Grizzle was arguing. But the point for us, it's a difficult task. Then, you know, had a lovely young lady call me concerning about the truck sign and what have you. So, and I also actually received an email, which y'all copied, from another individual. They were sure that we could have that removed. Well, we can't have it removed if we don't have the authority to do it. And there's difficulty. What I hope, and I know this is the intention from council, talking with y'all, your intentions are, let's fix the holes that may be in ordinances, let's give some clarity where the ordinances are, and then you can expect us to do our best to enforce those. But hopefully that answers your question about the right of way and the challenge that we encounter. But there are very few streets in the city where we have to rely on easements. Obviously, there's a mess out there as far as every street's a little different. I mean, Carter Alley, we did some work on that 3 years ago, and yes, we did survey work, because we had to be careful about whose driveway we were tearing up. Not uncommon in an old city like Lula. So hopefully that gave some clarity to it. But I promise you, we know it's in the metes and bounds. It reflects here, we're gonna err on the side of caution rather than go the other way.
Yeah.
That help with that?
It does, Dennis, and I want to say thank you for that. And also, I'd like to point out that it's, outrageous for us to expect, as citizens, for city officials, elected or not, to enforce this based on what we have here. It's almost an impossible task. Seriously.
So I'll name a city that's nearby, rather large, go southbound, you might run into it. So, probably, I think they stopped about 5 years ago. Similar issues. I think some of them were centered around, political signs. But, they had went out, and they've got their own mapping department. They piggyback with Hall County, but they have their own mapping department. So they made a gallant effort to go out and identify a right of way and what have you, so they could use that enforcement tool. And they still found, even when they went out, so they relied on what they had on their books, and they relied what Hall County has on their books, as does, I know 3 other cities, they do the same thing. They pull up a mapping like this initially. We go out, we take a look at it. We all think it's all about political signs. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's, who mentioned the A-frame sign that went up this morning? But anyway, so, and actually, just so y'all know, we actually lease a section of railroad property, and then we're charged with maintaining as well what can be erected on it as well. And that pretty much runs all the way up and down Main Street in the property. But back, Tony, to what you said, yes, enforcement, which is what we found with other cities have encountered the same thing, can become a challenge, especially when it's the emotions get, what I was going to say, get involved in it. You can't have one without the other.
Thank you for that, Dennis. And I would say, having a chance to read the right-of-way, performance and privilege use thereof, and again, it goes along with what you're saying, that even if we use right-of-way, which we have referenced right-of-way in our sign ordinance, that clearly, as you can see on this particular map from Hall County, that it's nearly impossible to determine right-of-way without measuring with a satellite, finding this, and that's if we have 100% confidence in this and use this and state that as the authority. This particular company, I'm guessing this is Schneider Corporation that has provided that GIS service. I don't know if Hall County had gotten that from a regional. What I noticed in the right-of-way, even in itself, is it does have clauses in there about 10-day notice to enforce. There's all kinds of things in there in that reference of right-of-way. Now that doesn't mean that when you pass a signed ordinance, can that supersede any of the requirements on the right-of-way? What was the title? Performance and privilege use thereof. I think that is something that if they conflict with each other, which I don't think they do because it doesn't make a reference to a time period, then we should probably, close that gap as well. So like you said, the idea here is to identify, one, that it's nearly impossible to do this as everything that we have written, and then if there's any way that we can rewrite some of the ordinance to help solve this problem, I think that's in our best interest as citizenry going forward. Now, one of the things I want to say is there were some good comments that were made about perhaps maybe we need an ordinance that specifically addresses political signs, that maybe we cannot. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Joey. And then there was also another one that, I'm thinking that perhaps if we have sign ordinance, and Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe we not use right-of-way to do enforcement. Perhaps we use, pavement.
How about try this? How about between no closer to the pavement than closest telephone pole? Or no closer to the pavement than closest fire?
Or any number of feet.
A number of feet.
Given the fact that there may or may not be a telephone pole, a ditch, or any other thing on any particular side street.
200 feet anyway.
Yeah.
Well, what I did, I went out today and people may have saw, I figured they'd get phone calls. I had my little wheel thing out measuring signs. That was me. Just to see, I went and picked some that I thought was a good distance, still could be seen, and I measured how far they were from the road. Okay, they went from 18.7 foot to 29 foot. So I come up with signs must be at least 20 foot from the road.
Pavement.
The pavement,
Edge-
where the
edge of
pavement,
pavement.
the edge of the pavement. Now, sometimes they pave over it, but you can see where that edge is. That's not including those little driveway paved things they do. If the yard is fenced and that fence is less than 20 foot, then the sign can be hung on the fence, but not put down in the grass. No signs on Main Street unless it's on private property. And then that just does away with, it clarifies. I think what we're missing is clarification on details. And if we put a detailed clarification in there, there's no confusion. It is what it is, and nobody can put their input, they can't make up what they think it is. If you have footage and you have specific clarification, there's no room for error.
Right, and I agree. I think it's something that we, could probably take to committee and review those, because I certainly wouldn't want to set a distance that actually goes well beyond right-of-way and into someone's property, so we want to make sure we don't do that. I think that we set a measurement that it should not be something that would, in general, go beyond right-of-way. What he's talking about, like Dennis was saying, is that's usually anywhere from, it can be 30 feet, can be less. That's 30 feet from the center line.
Here, if you look at this, 20 foot is. We said 20 foot, it might be, but it could be and or.
Right, but if you measured from the pavement, depending on where that was, it might only be 4 feet into someone's grass rather than 20 feet. So I wouldn't want to say measuring from the pavement, go 20 feet back. It might even be 5 feet. We don't know. We need to kind of take a look at that.
I'm confused on what you're saying.
What I'm saying is if you like the distance I thought you were saying, is, just as an example, is if you were measuring from the pavement, right?
From the edge of the road.
Right, so what you were saying is 20 feet. So that's in some cases an entire right-of-way as measured from the center of the roadway, which most people's rights-of-way are typically going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet into their property, not 20. That's where the end of the right-of-way would be. So I wouldn't want to violate that.
If you look at the ditch lines, and you look at the ditch lines, most of where the ditches are, if you measure past that ditch, the ditch line, you're looking at 20 feet on most of the roads that I rode on, and measured past the ditch line. Most of it was approximately 20 foot. That's kind of how I based that off. I didn't go to the full 29 foot, which some of them was, but 20 foot, most of the time, that 20 foot put you on the other side of the ditch, which I think's a pretty fair footage.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of measuring from the pavement, regardless of whatever distance we come up with, rather than right-of-way as it's described, in the various maps. Right. Because that's more, now the only time that's going to become an issue is if we actually do get those flying cars and they just go ahead and remove the paved roads. Just being facetious there, folks.
By then we'll change the order.
Yeah, we might have to change that.
Denise,
Yes, sir.
was that for temporary signs?
Yeah, for like the temporary signs.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's easy to take to committee and then try to go from building off.
I don't think that's,
I got a question.
All right,
If y'all are gonna redo this ordinance, I think as long as you're a Lula citizen resident, it shouldn't matter if it's county right of way, state right of way, or city right of way. Everybody's gotta be treated the same.
that's what we're trying to
well,
do,
that-
Steve.
that's,
Exactly what we're trying to do,
that
Steve.
was my point with saying that.
We're
Yes.
trying to do that.
Well, yeah, but we don't all have 50 acres where we can set back 20 feet. 20 feet on Narramore Way is double the right of way.
And that's why
Double the right of way.
well, that's
I'm
what,
sure my goats would like it because they can do them.
well, that's why I added if you've got a fence or something that comes up to the property that's not 20 foot.
And
I
establish
mean,
property
and it
lines.
doesn't have to be worded like that. There can be another wording
Yep.
there.
The issue was not the signs where they were. The issue was the signs being removed. So, I mean, y'all opened up a whole new can of worms trying to add in these feet and this feet and this feet.
Yeah. I think what happened is the enforcement action resulted in the
We haven't
removal of
got-
the
we haven't got
sign.
that
Trying to
yet.
fix
We haven't
the
got to that yet.
enforcement part.
We haven't got to that part yet.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
If we did say 20 feet, for
I mean,
example,
y'all
In
can do
subdivision.
whatever. I'm
In
just, that's what I
subdivision.
suggested. I'm not
I
saying
understand, I'm
write
just
that
saying,
in stone.
just to throw this out there, if you did do that, the front of my house is literally 30 feet from it. So I'm gonna have a
Exactly.
sign 10 feet from my house if we were to do 20 feet.
I got what you're
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. We don't need more.
That's like,
So
well,
that's
I'm just
literally-
saying,
Well,
yeah,
that's
right.
that's
I get
that's a
what
start.
you're saying,
That's a starting
basically.
place.
I get what you're saying.
Obstruct people's view, don't put them there.
Yeah, and that's
That's
another thing,
simple.
we're on the corner, we make sure any sign, whether a candidate puts it up or I put it up, that it obstructs nobody's view when they're turning out in Narramore Way, due to the fact that, hey, we've got precious cargo here that she's pulling out the roadway with her, we don't want anybody obstructing the view.
I understand that, but I'm
And
just
trust me,
saying that
was
we've got it
obstructed when I moved there.
because of the number of calls that come in, and y'all are gonna think I'm harsh, and everybody may hate me after I make this statement, and that's okay, you have the right. There's people in here that do. I'm trying to be tactful, so just give me a minute.
Don't tack away and do it.
Spit it out.
I feel like I have become a babysitter since I took office. I'm just going to be honest. It is babysitting a bunch of adults, and frankly, driving the school bus was a lot easier with 90 kids behind my back. And yes, there's issues. And yes, we have to fix them. And we need to do this, but we need to do it in an adult manner, and things have not been handled and in adult manners in a lot of this, especially when it's come to, wait.
I'm waiting, I'm gonna ask
I'm
you
not
a question.
calling names out. I'm not calling names out. There's just, some have been, some have not been. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying some things have not been
Did you put all
handled.
your signs 20 foot back? When you was running for council, did you go out there and make sure all your signs was put 20 foot back?
Let her finish.
Wait a minute.
Just asking.
Okay. No, let me finish, okay? Let me get it together. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get very emotional when I get.
Passion's the word.
Yes. So we have to make tough decisions. And when you have this one running saying this thing, this one running saying this one's running and saying another, and everybody is bickering, and what it comes down to is a lot of it's political, and it is political. And so the political part has fired up, and it causes this tension in the city. It has been 3 years of this political tension. And I thought that we had got to the point to where it had calmed down. And then all of a sudden, boom, the phone calls start coming in. And well, it was another election, but it started off pretty smooth, I thought. And I was very proud. I was proud of the point that we had got to. And did Felton park his truck up there? Yes, he did. Did he break any laws? No, he did not. He didn't break laws. He didn't break the rules of the, wait. I'm talking. He found a loophole and he took it. Was it smart? I don't think it was very smart. I don't think it worked in his favor. Just being honest. Sometimes loopholes and things that you can do aren't necessarily right. It's not necessarily the right thing to do. It just isn't. Get through the election. Everybody puts their signs up. Signs would not have been removed if the complaints hadn't come in. If we could have just made it to, what is the date? May the 21st? If we could have made it to May 21st, there wouldn't have been a single sign pulled up. But the complaints started coming in. And it's a political season. It's a political season. We know the signs are going up. Do we like the signs? Most of us don't. Are there 100 signs lined up down through there? There was last time. Signs started going up this time, but it's political season, and we know that they go up. Complaining, it's going to happen every time an election comes up. The signs are going to go up. We could just put our big boy pants on, not call in and complain about them, get through the election, and go on, and we wouldn't even be in the position that we're in now. And I know that that's not what nobody wants to hear, but that's my feelings. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I feel like I have turned into an underpaid babysitter on a lot of issues, and I guess I just needed to get it off my chest more than anything. Nobody's going to agree 100% with what we come up with. We're going to do our best to come up with something that satisfies everybody along the board to the best of our ability. But there's going to be some that's not going to be satisfied in the end. It's how it works. We do get along up here. We work well together. We feed off of each other's ideas, opinions, even when we don't agree.
Yep.
So the comment saying that we need to get the chip off our shoulder and get along, we do get along. Tony and I had lengthy conversations over this. We didn't agree on everything, but that was okay because I came up with ideas, he came up with ideas, we bounced off of it and come up with a different idea. And that's what it's about. It's about working together. And that's what we're going to do on this. We're going to sit down, we're going to take it to committee, we're going to work together, and if it takes 6 months to figure out what's best, then that's what it'll do. It'll take 6 months to figure it out if that's what it does. But we're going to bounce ideas and we're going to do the best that we can to come up with something that is best for the overall portion of the city, not just this street and this street. Like I said, I measured only a few signs, and Juliet made a good point, and that's what we do when we come to these meetings. I'll bounce something, she'll bounce something else, wait a minute, this don't work, and then we come up with something different, and that's how we operate. And it works very well. We all do get along pretty well, even though we don't always agree. We do. And so the arguing and the animosity, it doesn't make things run smoother. Suggestions are very much welcomed. Your opinion is very much welcome, but the animosity and the hate that feels like it comes out at times doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help us to get our job done the way it needs to be done. And I'm sorry, that's my soapbox.
Good girl. Good girl. Okay, what we're gonna have to do about the sign ordinance, looks like to me, we gotta get the wording figured out and also the numbers. Yeah, like Juliet said, she's our subdivision resident. The rest of us got a little more property, more private, stuff like that. Garnish is wide open. Denise and Tony are private. I'm right on the main road. I don't have near much road frontage everybody else does. But we'll figure it out. I mean, like I said, she represents the subdivision basically because she knows what the problems are in that subdivision. We've got different ideas. Garner's got 500 square linear feet on road frontage area. He don't worry about much. It's close to 700 feet. I thought it was 700. I couldn't remember. Anyway, but that's the difference we got among us, and it gives us a different perspective, which is what we gotta do. But that's what we got to do. Yes, sir.
I need to ask a question about the measurement and all that. Down on my property, Button Bridge Road, Button Bridge Place, my pins are running around the curve and down the road.
This is not system comments. This is discussion. Okay, come on up here. I didn't.
Gene Brown at 6805 Button Bridge Place. The question I wanted to ask was, my property pins are right on the edge that goes around the curve and they go straight down. With the measurements we're talking about here, there's no way, because that's my property right there.
Your property pins are on the edge of the pavement?
Yes, right there on the edge of the pavement. Going right around the curve, going into Button Bridge Place.
You got no problem on road front, but setbacks in it.
Yeah, we haven't said, we haven't really discussed a particular, I know there was a hypothetical number that was given, but we'll certainly review all of it, and that's a good point.
I was just, wanting to mention that I'm not raising sign or anything, I'm just asking the question, how would that be worked out?
Right, so on the corner property, as far as distance goes, when you're going around the radius of a curve, how do you measure? Yeah, that's something that we're definitely going to have to consider when we are looking at setting any distance.
It goes straight down Button Bridge Road and then comes around the curve into Button Bridge Place. That's where my pins are setting, so.
Yeah, I'm making a note of these are things to consider and remember.
And as far as the signs, they went over my private property and took up those signs, and they shouldn't have been able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I might have a solution for all this. How about you go right there where the railroad property is, where the fence is, like LJ and everyone else has. They have like a big billboard that everybody puts their signs up. And then you can turn around and charge $20, $30 or whatever y'all decide on. Then it'd be all in one race, one big billboard. And then you can see who all's running. That would eliminate going out through the city, having to put the signs everywhere. They can just drive up and they can see this big billboard. It's got the little signs. Now, under your sign ordinances, when I come in dressed, your marshal and Mr. Frank, I asked them, can I pay a permit downtown? No.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
They said no.
No to what? I didn't hear what you
A
said.
permit to have a temporary sign during the election.
We don't issue permits
I know.
for temporary.
But, you do have sign ordinances where we can purchase.
Temporary signs are exempt from.
Okay, but if you go like, say, right there at the four-way, have like 16-foot poles and the backing where each candidate or whatever, if anybody's advertising a yard sale or anything, they can turn around and pin one up. And then that should satisfy everyone. Then we wouldn't have it everywhere through the city. So think about that. It's pretty neat the way to do that.
Robert Grizzle still, 6400 Airmore Way, Lewis, Georgia. I would like to make a comment about what was just a discussion. First of all, I do refer us back to our First Amendment right. I think we're all adults in this room. I do think things should be kept civil, but we are Americans, and the part of our great heritage of being Americans is the number one thing, our First Amendment, the right to speak. And I think I can speak for most people, if not every person in this room, that we don't like being called babies by somebody we elected as a council person. Thank you.
No, I didn't say I was a babysitter. I called myself that.
Yeah, I mean,
was done, but I think they probably want to review, in committee, and then that would alleviate any enforcement action, but I think since it's on the agenda, I'll just bring it up.
yeah, are we through a sign ordinance review?
But it'd just be
Do we think we're through a sign ordinance review? Is everybody satisfied that we're reviewing the ordinance? We're gonna figure out what we're gonna say about it?
I've got some.
Uh,
I'm Jeff Smith, 6675 Main Street. I own a piece of property across the street from my home. It's 8 foot wide, goes up 280 feet, it's 14 foot on the other end. It's deeded.
the mayor does too.
I got a
Former
plat.
mayor.
I'm not political, I don't care who puts a sign there, if they just ask. Somebody asked to put a sign there, I told them it's fine.
Did somebody take it up?
It got taken up, so then it come back to me, I didn't own that. I've got a plat showing it, so just to get it straight, it's private property.
That's where we got in trouble using the right of way. That's something we're gonna be addressing. I think we're gonna resolve that problem.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Mr. Smith, yeah, that's certainly something that, is forefront in my mind. Private property versus public property that we'll, have to address in any new ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Because it's something that we're going to have to discuss as council as to, how we would even, do that. But I want to make sure that private property owners have the right to use their private property.
Yeah.
I've been paying taxes on it for a long time.
Exactly.
If somebody wants it, they can have it.
You can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with it. 8 foot by 200 foot. Build a fence on it, so I can just about build a fence on
Like
it.
the old Petticoat Junction, put me a bar right there on there.
If we can create use, we'll
A
buy
long
it.
time ago, we wheel at the Petticoat Junction up there.
Did it to the city. Make them cut it. Anybody else got anything they want to say about the sign ordinance? Yes, sir.
Crystal Allen, 492 7th Street. And I know y'all working on it. The only thing I'd ask is maybe before the next election, if we could have it written out and put in the packet, when you pick up.
Where
to
you put
sign-
sign.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
run.
that had to be
And
two
then
and a half
that way,
years
and
ago,
make
too.
sure it's something that can be enforced and that we're willing to enforce it. And then that's the only thing, just if everybody's treated the same, I think we're good.
Yeah.
But we need to know, because and I know y'all working on it, I'm just saying, but I think that'd be, if we could put it in with the packet when you pick up to run, then maybe that would help.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago when I ran, I got a letter from the election board telling me where the rights, that my sign's gonna be in rights of way. That's, I asked Joey, where's our rights of way at? And he sent me a map.
Okay. Yeah, if you
Remember
put
that?
something like that, I mean,
Remember
just
I
something,
think I
I
got
mean,
one too. I think we.
Somebody complained, apparently, and the election board sent me a letter. Said,
like I know, and I'm
Get
sure
'em out.
other people just like me, we didn't intentionally try to break the rules,
Yeah,
we were
right,
just,
yeah.
so anyway,
That's
just,
what we were too, and evidently the complaint went then to election board, still coming to City Hall.
okay.
That's how that was over. It's the first time everybody knows about it, right? I never told anybody about this. And this is the first time y'all ever heard about our sign problems 2.5 years ago. We had them, but we do care of them. And
Yeah.
we didn't bitch,
Yeah, that's the thing.
we didn't
I think
bitch
a lot of
and
this
demand a
is-
meeting for it, stuff like that, no.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is miscommunication and not being clear, and we can clear that up. And
We'll work on that. Okay, now enforcement actions have been taken on all these. I'm not sure how much detail we need to go into all that. Because we know some of the signs have been taken up, we know some of other things have been done. And, yes, ma'am.
On that 6443 Narrow Way, all these signs.
Stephanie Miller, by the way.
Stephanie Miller. I started driving around looking at these signs on the road. You got signs that are this far off the road still sitting there. You got signs up on the hill. And as a property owner, and with the signage and this being a big thing with all of the voting, wouldn't it have been a much easier task to notify before just going and taking? I mean, I got notified that I got sticks too close to the road, and I can't get any, we won't go there, but there's all these door knockers, and then you also have a water bill that comes to everyone in the city of Lula. And there is surely room on a water bill to give a notice.
That reminds me, since you mentioned that, have y'all gotten y'all's water bills yet? I thought
No.
they haven't come back yet. Just what month was it? What month was it? Because
This current one. Are you sure?
they haven't come to the post office yet. We don't
Well,
have time.
well, I mean the current, I mean the one I just paid.
Oh, okay, yeah, last month.
Yeah, that's the first one we got.
Just come tomorrow.
Yeah, if you don't get it by tomorrow, be sure and call City Hall. Please call City Hall.
We mailed them last Tuesday.
Yes.
Because we've got so many complaints that, did we not mail them this? We mailed them last Tuesday. They have been mailed. We do apologize. If you haven't gotten it, it is not our fault.
It's post office spot, which I've been off. I was off Saturday, and I was off today.
So I want to hear, if you don't mind, I want to hear from Stephanie, if you had other comment did you wanted to make?
I just wanted to say that I, as a property owner, we don't try to do things wrong way. If you guys want to point out that we've done something wrong, we would take care of it. But somebody coming on my property and saying, it's out, I would appreciate at least a phone call, a door knocker that you guys are good about leaving on the doors on stuff that's happening. It just seems to me that, and just like I said with the water bills, everybody gets a water bill. There's room on a water bill. Notice. Even for the council meetings. I mean, I couldn't keep the council meeting dates in order to save my life. What day is this and what day is that? But the water bills can be a way of notifying folks. And again, I just think a little bit of notice on any of these signs would have been, instead of just removing signs, it would have went a long way. And I don't know that you as council members even knew that was happening. I don't know who said to go take the signs or what, but I think with a little thought on it, it could have been fixed in a 3-day deal. Mm-hmm. Leave a door knock. If it's Friday, it'll be Monday, somebody will make a phone call. And then if it's not taken care of, then the person's been notified, but just removing stuff from properties, whether it be right away or no right away, giving the person a notice is as much as anything. I mean, when I got my stick notice, it wasn't even my sticks. I was like, fine, I'll move them. But I got a notice. And it was just, and I don't know how many sign complaints or signs did y'all remove? I mean, are we talking 10? Are we talking 50, 100? I mean, if it's a matter of 20 properties, I think a door knocker would have been an easy fix instead of all this. Mm-hmm. It would have been much easier. I think it could have been handled a different way, personally. Maybe future things that come up, those door knockers help. That's all I got.
The City Hall received complaints about a violation of the sign ordinance, and they responded to the complaint by investigating the complaint, and they took the action required by our ordinance. Am I correct in that, Dennis?
For the most part, Ms. Villarwanda, you started by saying you took a lot of look around.
They're all in the wrong places.
Yeah. So
I mean, even now, they're
there's
still
an irony
close
to
to
all
the road.
that, and you made some good suggestions. But the irony is that a lot of those signs, as everybody in this room knows, have been removed only to have
Replaced.
signs go right back up again. And that's a quandary for us because we know the council's concerned, we know the example I gave, we had somebody call at 10 o'clock and then they called back at 11:30 and wanted to know why we didn't stop right then and there, go pick up the sign that was in violation. And to answer your question about the number of signs, I'm not sure how many that was, but the bad news was, when, Joey and Frank and I got together, we couldn't distinguish one between the other, so if it was in question, every sign was removed. That being said, that was a lot of signs. I don't know if it was 50.
Well, plus on top of that, it was not just political campaign signs, it was church notice signs like food closet, food banks. If they're right away, that day they did it fairly. They got everybody at the same time. They did not discriminate.
Keep those signs and give them back and people
Yeah.
want them.
We keep
Yeah,
getting
we notify them after the fact.
I didn't know they had S&S signs in.
Come
Yeah,
together.
it could be, I mean,
I'll show you where they're at. Come between 8 and 5, we
These
keep
things
those
get
back.
expensive.
yeah. That-
And another thing, in taking care of these complaints, any place that I might go to and have a complaint, they have so much time. 3 days, 72 hours, 24 hours, enough time to get it door knocked.
Last
Yeah, the sign ordinance,
A lot of people haven't showed a lot of patience. I mean, when they were, frustrated, poor Tangi and Teresa, they catch the London a lot of times because they're the ones that answer the phone or go to the window. And some of these people have not showed the patience and understanding. And which goes back to, and we want to do better. Some of your suggestions were good ones that we hope we can apply. But the example would be, sometimes there's only one of us, and one of us can't be in 100 places. And one time it was like the complaint we got last week where somebody sent us out, I believe they were staking, not on a wild goose chase. But at the end of the day, we spent a whole lot of time looking into their concerns, which we should do, but that took us away from everything else we should be doing as well, which goes back to the guy that complained an hour and a half later we hadn't picked up their sign. And we're sympathetic to it. We get it. We don't want to make anybody mad. If we can avoid, all we're about is compliance. We're not about writing you a ticket. We're not about how many citations. It's all about, can we get people compliant? But your example was a good one. The very same signs in some of the locations that we've already taken down, they turn right around and put up again, and then our phones ring here. Well, what are you gonna do about it? They turn around and put the sign right back up. Well, we're gonna continue to try not to let our emotions get involved, and we're gonna try to do we're gonna do what the ordinance says, and then I'm tickled the council's going to look at it and see if there's some other changes we can make. We've actually, saw some other things in there we'd like to change, or like the council to consider, and that'll take us a long way down the road. But we'll see.
Our town is such a unique, then the tracks or railroad track that runs through it. As long as it's off of the city right of way, let the railroad deal with the people's signs.
They won't enforce it. They actually, so just, you may have heard me earlier, they lease the land to us for enforcement.
All of it?
Sections of it. So like we have a 2-mile section, I don't remember how
But-
wide it is.
So if it's off right of way, won't you allow the candidates to put 10 signs each up on that side? As long as they're out of the way, I mean, they can scatter them out up through there. I mean, where it's a unique situation where we have that track there, it's not gonna hurt anyone.
Is that legal, Joey, if we were to limit it?
Look at that contract.
Right.
Has to be content neutral. And I want to emphasize to folks when they're, because the most protected speech is political speech. And those are signs. So on your private property, that is the greatest protection for any sign that there is.
That's right.
And the issues that y'all were talking about, the width of the right-of-way changes. So just the example of a subdivision street will be substantially narrower than another street, a major artery running through. So the right-of-way, we have some restrictions because that's got to be for public safety. And you have limits on being able to allow a sign within the right-of-way. There are things you can do, but the right-of-way ordinance that Frank sent to you was more to do if somebody wants to get on the right of way to put in a utility or anything else, they have to get a permit and have to apply to tell us where it is and what's there, not necessarily for a sign. And the temporary signs are exempt anyway, so for, as a general rule, on private property, a temporary sign, such as a political sign, there's no regulation. Cities should not regulate that and never would, but we can't say it's a political sign. It could be the the realtor signs that were mentioned, or any other temporary sign, which is any sign that's 30 days or less. We have very limited restrictions. Virtually every campaign season in every local government, the issue is signs on the right-of-way, and it's because it becomes a public safety issue. But as Dennis has told you, a lot of local governments have said the heck with it because of the outpour, just what we've run into when the signs are taken from the right-of-way, the issues come up. Right. The last thing I wanted to mention was, well, next to last, is I appreciate the reliance upon the GIS mapping, but if you click around that site, it will tell you at the very front, not a legal description.
Amen.
So just what was mentioned here about if you want to know the exact location, you're going to have to survey it. But frankly, if we were going to survey all of our right-of-way, we'd have to impose a tax, and a pretty heavy tax, to get all the survey. So it's unlikely that will occur in the future, in the foreseeable future, but it's just a matter of being able to determine where that right-of-way location is. And the last thing is, the next time we have a bucket of candy, it should not stay at the other end of the
I don't want any of it.
And thank you for calling her out. You know, call her out temporary signs at construction sites.
Y'all sit it down here, I just stuck it in the corner.
When we've got tractor trailers coming and going out of the roadway, like here recently over in Claremont on Georgia 52, right there in that the apex of that curve, you know, we had a lot of tractor trailers coming in. You know, I even called the sheriff's department out there, so my intentions was that they would reroute the traffic around that curve on Georgia 52. Instead, they was more interested in the log cabin sitting on the tractor trailer that got themselves stuck. So everybody just backed up, and then we went and told them, you know, it's real simple to go around on Russ Ramsey and all of that. But we use temporary signs. You know, it's just a thing that sometimes it's for the best. You know, I've got a couple up right now. They're solely for safety reasons, never to block any kind of line of sight.
Well, and some of those are required on road work. There's specific
You're right.
requirements.
You're like the logging trucks. When they're logging a certain area, they're required to put out the signs because they're slow moving, they're coming out, they're right on the road. And now, like over there on Georgia 52, over in Claremont, we had signs on both sides of the highway because it was so dangerous. These people coming out of that construction site and the cars, you know, 70 miles an hour around that curve, and all of a sudden, wow. I think it's important on that, but I think we all just got to use our heads, and it shouldn't be biased, and that was the issue. Because, again, I came home, I've talked about the chain of events, and believe you me, I drove around this whole city when I came home. I drove around everywhere. Yeah, the signs were removed off of the railroad property and the school property, and so were mine. That was the only ones gone that day. There was a couple other signs going. One fell in front of me and Jewel Armor behind me. But even the officer that came out to my property, we walked up to the corner. I said, take a look up the road, and if you can see almost all the way to Overhill Highway. You can see all the way down to the highway of 365 when you walk out on my corner. And all you can see in both directions on my street were political signs. Of both sides. Keep in mind, of everybody else. Only my signs and Jewel's signs were removed on Belton Bridge. And his sign, I saw his because his signs were removed and mine. That first day, other than the signs off of city property. And that's what we're here about. And this is what this is about. That was the complaint. You know, putting them in the wrong place where you're not allowed to put them. Again, city property is in leased property from the railroad. Now I know about the railroad. We did a little walk in there when Bergin had hair salon up here, we had to get permission from the railroad to put her handicap ramp coming through her door. And, you know, those things are, but a school property is definitely a no-no.
Okay, have we covered everything we need to cover? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Anybody knows me knows I'm not a speaker, but when I speak, I gotta speak from my heart, okay? Several weeks ago, I was at a meeting here, and a very special person to me dropped a bunch of signs off at my house. So I'm one of the ones that got several respectable guys in our community to help me put up some signs. And I appreciate that. And I passed them out. I'm also responsible for making sure that what was given to me are given back to the person. So I did receive some of them back, and I have given some of them out back again, but there's a couple that's missing, and I don't know if somebody took them down.
The city should never touch your signs in your yard. The city should never touch the signs in your yard. You're not the city limits.
No, sir. But the thing about it is, when me and these other special people of the community were helping me, none of us knew that we did anything wrong. And I've lived here since 1965, and I don't care if it's Lula ladies, if it's a church function, your church, my church. When somebody asks me to help, I go to stores or restaurants. I'll help you in any way I can. But it's very important, and I appreciate everything everybody said tonight. The lack of confusion or understanding creates confusion. And all we need to know, all of us need to know what is the proper thing for us to do, because I don't think any of us did anything that we felt like would hurt somebody or we was doing something wrong. And if you don't have my phone number, call somebody and say, can you give me Debbie's phone number? And call me and tell me, and I'll be glad to change and fix what I've done wrong.
Did anybody take your signs? Anybody take signs out of your yard? They didn't, did they?
No, sir, not out of my yard.
Okay. I thought that's what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, sir. Some of the signs that I put up that were taken up down in the city, I had some special, like I said, some special guys of Lula that helped me because it was a little bit big for me to do, but nobody knew it was the wrong thing to do.
And
so
we're going to try to clarify that.
It would help all of us to know, like I said, whether it's a church function, a political, if it's anything that's wrong, a food pantry, I help. Somebody will say, will you help me out? Yes, I will. And thank you, Crystal Al, for what you said. I love people in this room, and like I said, call me if you need to tell me something, and I'll make it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. For the record, in case anybody's missing, that was Debbie Hubbard Smith and 6998 Belton Bridge Road. For the record, I just put your name and address in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're through with this. If everybody satisfied with our meeting so far?
Nope, got one more.
I'm sorry. Speak up.
Curtis Haney, 54370 Cornelia Highway, Lula 30554. One of the things that's been going on, and it even happened here tonight, it's like some of the city council members are pulling their weight for either some people that's trying to be elected or against other people, and it's not the right thing to do. Let people do what they're doing. If it's lawful, if it's not, don't be calling out your constituents for you getting upset about what's going on. If I would've had a vehicle parked up there at the park for a week, taking up 2 parking places, I would've been ticketed, and the car would've probably been hauled off. Because that's breaking the law. That is totally breaking the law. And it was told by a council member today that that person did not do anything wrong. Yes, they did. That is breaking the law.
We don't have an ordinance against that.
What about state ordinances? A law is a law. You cannot be double parked.
He fixed that. He was told and he fixed that.
About 4 to 5 days later.
Nobody said anything about it until that. But I think, for sure, I think within 24 hours when he was told that, it was corrected. If I'm not mistaken.
So it's corrected after 6 days.
That's,
But like I'm saying though, if it would have been anybody else, if it would have been me, I'm sure I would have at least gotten a ticket if the car would not have even been hauled. 10 pound.
I don't know about that either.
So, but when somebody up here on the city council defends somebody for that, that's what makes everybody in the county think about, or everybody in the city think about the city council.
I'm not defending him at all.
Well,
I don't
you
think
was.
But I said he did not break the law by doing it.
But he did.
He did.
He did break the law.
He didn't break city law.
Yeah.
He may have
So
broke
that's all
county
we care
law,
about.
whatever, but the county didn't do anything about it, so you went to the wrong meeting.
Just about that.
2 inches. On the black line.
No.
I was all over the internet.
Don't start, let's not start bickering, let's not start bickering here, we're almost finished. We almost made it without blood. That's the goal. Anybody else have anything want to say?
I wouldn't have y'all's jobs.
Come on, man,
No, sir, y'all,
come on, man.
question's hard.
Try to get you run last year, you wouldn't do it.
I would like to say something, I would like to know from each council member, are y'all willing to accept that we have the First Amendment in our Constitution? And are y'all willing to know that we have a right to our First Amendment, freedom of speech?
As long as you don't attack somebody.
Well, that's no attacking.
But there are limits to the First Amendment, there are limits. You can't yell fire in a theater.
That's why we've got a city council, by the way.
That's right.
We elect people that gives us our freedom of speech. And that's how we air our things out, in a civilian way, civility, to keep us. Sometimes emotions get high. Keep the voice down, don't talk to one another in the room, shake hands when you leave, be fine with it. But we should not be called names because we express.
Say that again, say that part again, Robert. Don't talk to anybody else in the room, is that what you just said? Interrupting you? Interrupting you? Okay. I heard you. I think we've covered everything we need to cover tonight. I guess I can entertain them. Somebody having something to say? Are we done? I'd entertain a
Do
motion.
you want council comments?
Yeah, I guess we'll do council comments. You want to start?
Did we want citizens?
I think we've been that all night.
Okay, yeah, I don't know how we want to handle that, but if no objections, we'll do citizen comments, or council comments.
No problem.
You want me to go first? Okay. So I just want to say, kind of echo on what Denise said. We may exhibit, some heated discussions, but we definitely get stuff done. We are calling each other often, and believe me, keeping Dennis and Frank and Joey and Tangi, everyone is busy, receiving these phone calls, especially during an election season. And so they're doing the best they can. We're getting stuff from you guys, and I want you to keep giving that to us. Keep calling us. That's what we're here for. We're here to represent you. I know that one of the goals that I had for this particular meeting was really to just have an understanding of what ordinances we have, how they are interpreted and enforced, and if there are any gaps that need to be filled, such as maybe rewriting some ordinance, or not anything that can be done right now tonight. It has to be done in a very methodical manner so that we get it right. That's what we're here to do. That's what you elected us to do. And I know that Juliet, Garnet, Denise here, myself, and Joe all are committed to doing that. And that's why we've had this meeting. And I appreciate you all participating and coming and expressing your opinion. We talked about right-of-way. That was fantastic. We've got a specific ordinance of right-of-way. We'll be looking at that as well. We've made notes on a lot of things that got brought up as options to consider, as well as suggestions from all of you in the room. So thank you for doing that. And I will address, when it comes to the First Amendment, I'll be the first to say I'm a constitutionalist. I respect the Constitution of our nation. And please don't ask me to violate that Constitution when we're doing any sort of ordinance creation at all, because I will make sure that the Constitution comes first. So certainly I'll speak for myself on that one. But that's all I wanted to say. But thank you again for all coming out. Give us an opportunity to get it right. And I think, who was it? Oh, it was Lou Allen. Sorry, I'm not supposed to mention any names. Somebody put a time clock on us, something about doing something by the next election. So I think we've got a pseudo time clock on us for, come November. But I think that's plenty of time for us to be able to work together and get something put together. And we've got Joey here, top-notch attorney, keep us straight, making sure that we have all of that correct. So thank you. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Robert, I didn't intentionally. I'm sorry, but I'm addressing you. I am going to address you directly because you made the statement. I wasn't intentionally calling you names. I called myself a babysitter, and that you took that as me calling you a baby. And that was not my intent when I said that. The intent was not to call anybody a name. So I apologize that you took it that way. I appreciate everybody coming out. We try to do everything fair and treat everybody fairly. And we do have laws and ordinances that we abide by. And just because we don't like what someone has done doesn't mean that we can go against what the ordinances and the regulations are. And we have to do things in a fair manner. Doesn't mean that we agree with what they're doing. We just have laws we have to abide by in that sense. And we get passionate up here as well as you guys do, but it's hard for us to do our job when there's so much emotion that gets involved in the discussions when you're not. And I know you get passionate about what you're talking about, but whenever it gets heated and the heat starts flying, it makes it harder for us to concentrate on what we need to be doing up here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank y'all for coming out.
All right.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I'm glad we had this meeting and everybody gets to state their opinion. Elections didn't used to be this way here in Lula. Last time, it was this way. And this time, it needs to change and go back the way it was.
Juliet?
Thank you all for voicing your opinion. They do mean something to us. We are listening. And I actually am looking forward to seeing what we can't do to try to fix this before the next election, because we don't need to keep having this problem. We had it the last one, we had it the one before. It needs to be done.
I want to thank everybody for being here, and we have had a spirited discussion tonight. There's no anger involved. There's maybe some loud talking, just to be heard sometimes. But we can all work together. We can all get this done. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion made by Garnet Smith, second by Denise Shaw to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.